We're going to get things started right away, so I'd like to introduce to you the director of Peace Corner, where we are today, Drew Hines.
Hello, my name is Drew Hines. I'm the Peace Corner director. Welcome. The center opened up in 2002 as in part in particularly prone community of violence. Madison is the dividing line between gang territories, and it often spills out into the street. Still, there are families here living here in the neighborhood and children who deserve a place to grow and dream a better future. They deserve to have hope. And that's where we come in. The mission of a youth center is to serve Austin community youth and enable them to become better themselves. Every day, 30 to 40 youth count on Peace Corners to be open, one of the only safe places they can go after school and in the summer. We work every day to make Austin neighborhoods safer, better, more productive, and nurturing place for young people to flourish. We offer a variety of programs, including career development, outreach, sports, mentorship, tutoring, summer camp, and employment programs. We're so happy for all of you all to be here with us this morning to join us in this beacon of hope in the Austin community. It is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce Cardinal Blase Cupich, Archbishop of Chicago. Cardinal Cupich.
Thank you, Drew. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's so early, and I know the traffic was a little hectic for some of you getting here at this hour. Some of you who are here, as I look around the room, recall that day that I landed at O'Hare Airport, and I was asked almost right off the plane, what are you going to do about the violence in the city? I replied that it seemed to me that the issue was very complex. There were no easy solutions, but that I was willing to partner with others, and I knew that I needed to be brought up to speed on the situation. I quickly learned that the Archdiocese, through its many entities, was very present in areas that are marked by violence. Yet I sensed that there was a need to find out what exactly was being done, and if these efforts were well coordinated, and also if we were reaching out to form partnerships with organizations of like interest beyond the Archdiocese. So last year, I asked some of our leaders in our social service ministries, our academic institutions, and others to compile a complete inventory of the things that the Church had in place to address the root causes of violence and to make suggestions how we can increase our efforts but also build peace through greater partnerships with other organizations in the city. I invited you here today to give some insight into what I have learned about the various entities of the Archdiocese and what they're doing to build a culture of peace and nonviolence, and also to outline for you some new initiatives that we will add to those already in place. Now, the report that I received detailed that much is already being done, and you will receive in your press packets a map of the sites of care. There are parishes and schools dotting the city as well, and many of them have food pantries, like the one at St. Martin de Porres that is just a couple blocks away. I see Father Walsh here, and you're invited to go down there and take a look at what they're doing. And there are other outreach activities. Their work also revealed that we can not only better communicate and coordinate within the Archdiocese, but also yield better results by leveraging what we are doing to form partnerships with other groups. And so, after receiving that report, we have set the following goals for our anti-violence initiative. The first, to increase awareness of what is being done each and every day in this city by groups and individuals, civic, religious, and business leaders, to address the root causes of poverty as a way of encouraging greater civic pride and greater participation by our citizens in joining in the work of peace building. 2, to increase the capacity and the reach of our current archdiocesan programs that address the root causes of poverty. 3, to identify and actively seek partnerships with like-purpose groups and individuals who are already doing so much. And finally, to actively seek out and invest in new approaches to breaking the violence-causing cycle of despair, of racism, and poverty. As an example of the scope and the depth of our current programs, let me give you some sense of where the church is active in the near vicinity of where we stand today. Let's start with this very building. It houses the programs that Drew described. The Peace Corner is meant to be a beacon on Madison Avenue, which is a dividing line between gang territories. The young people who come here need to be careful that they aren't crossing gang lines on their way to this building. It is also a block away, as I mentioned, from St. Martin de Porres, and a very dangerous street corner in Chicago, where men openly deal drugs throughout the day. Yet it is beautiful, it's open, it's bright by design. It's also LEED certified and has a green roof, teaching children that respecting our common home is an important element in transforming our culture. The families we serve here and at St. Martin de Porres, just behind us a couple of blocks away, and in the other sites of care, do not have the luxury of moving to other neighborhoods out of harm's way. They stand at bus stops, trying to get to work, or walk their children to school, never knowing if today is the day a bullet will find them. So we stand here with them. The Catholic presence in Austin also includes Christ the King High School and the Chicago Jesuit Academy. The academy is on lockdown 4 to 5 times a week, which means a shooting has occurred within 2 blocks of the school. And nearby on Jackson, Miralax St. Vincent provides comprehensive programs for more than 500 youth so that they can make positive decisions about their own lives, keeping them off the streets, out of gangs, and in schools. We are here because the kids are here, because the families are here. They deserve our support. But we also are committed to expanding our presence on the West Side and partnering with businesses to stabilize communities. The Austin Bank Corporation has now recently generously donated their 25,000 square foot building on Lake Street and the adjacent property to Catholic Charities. What was once an anchor of commerce will now become an anchor of hope for Austin. Catholic Charities has plans to provide social services there, including counseling, job training, and placement, a senior center, and a food pantry. You no doubt are familiar with the efforts on the south side, where the faith community of St. Sabina, ably led by Father Flager, houses a program for at-risk 17 to 26-year-old men called Strong Futures. By February, 22 of the 50 men who started with the program last July now have full-time jobs. 12 had part-time jobs. 5 had internships. The best success rate in the country for such an effort. We are committed to expanding that program to address the high unemployment rate among young men of color. And we will expand the anti-gang peacemakers on the street initiative at St. Sabina, where former gang members do direct intervention by reaching out to current gang members and community members on the south and on the west sides. They have already brought 6 gangs together to begin to talk with each other and with 6 district police officers. In just a moment, Father Scott Donahue will talk to you about the mentorship program he employs at Mercy Home. We are committed to working with youth guidance to adapt this school-based program for use in parishes that are afflicted by violence. Now, broad gestures and sweeping rhetoric will not solve the problem. We need to do this person by person. That holds the promise. That is why we are participating in an expanded round of on-the-table talks with our parishes this May. We will explore topics including the impact of racism on our communities. Solving the problem of violence requires that we break the bonds of racism, person by person, heart by heart. We will encourage other faith leaders to do the same, or if they like, to join our parish gatherings. We will also begin the process of holding the first United States meeting of the Scholas Ocurrentes in Chicago next year. The Scholas program, now active in more than 100 countries, brings young people together for a week of encounter, discussion, and problem solving. The participants will be chosen from schools throughout the two-county archdiocesan area. Young people have the greatest stake in building a nonviolent culture, and so they should have a voice in forming solutions. Pope Francis is personally supportive of this effort and has given it the status of a papal foundation. This kind of peace bridge building across our neighborhoods is so important to break down the barriers of segregation that leaves so many people isolated and therefore hopeless. As the recent Metropolitan Planning Council report showed, reducing the level of segregation in Chicago, which is the direct result of racism, to the national average would reduce Chicago region's homicide rate by 30%. In addition, we understand that many worthy programs, many of them neighborhood-based, which are already deployed against violence, too often lack resources. And so today I'm announcing that I will use $250,000 of my discretionary funds, which people donate to support my charitable works, to start the Instruments of Peace Venture Philanthropy Fund. We're going to seek other donors who want to join us in supporting and expanding existing programs and new approaches, but who also want to partner with us in the administration and the oversight of this fund. This is just the start of a long and, I believe, hopeful journey. We invite you to watch it grow and prosper. In all of this, we haven't forgotten the power and the peace born of praying together and the public witness of working together. And so on Good Friday, I will lead a walk for peace in Englewood, praying the Stations of the Cross and pausing to remember those who have lost their lives to violence this year. We will recognize the people who are working hard each day to bring security to our city, promote peace, and address the causes of violence. By highlighting their efforts, we hope to put the spotlight on the many good things happening here in Chicago and build greater support and a sense of solidarity in the broader community. We want to inspire people to work together, giving them hope that we can do something even if we cannot do everything. That is why we will walk the way of the cross on Good Friday, and I hope that you will join us. I intentionally chose today, April 4, to provide this update on our efforts and to announce our goals, as it is the 49th anniversary of the death of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. My hope is that throughout this year, leading up to the 50th anniversary of that dreadful day, when his life was cut short by an assassin at age 39, we will come together as a city, inspired by his legacy, to likewise dedicate our lives to nonviolence and peace building, to make a commitment starting today to do everything we can do to end the scourge of violence in our neighborhoods before more lives are cut short, more promise and potential lost, and more tears shed. I'm also inspired by the challenge Pope Francis issued in his New Year's message for the World Day of Peace, and to make peace building and combating violence a priority in each one of our lives. He believes that young people especially have an important role to play in this regard. He also appreciates that we have a legacy in the leadership of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to inspire us to take up this work of peace building and creating greater solidarity. While I was in Rome last week, Pope Francis asked to see me. I updated on a number of things, and especially our initiatives with regard to nonviolence, because I wanted to respond to his New Year's Day message against violence. He is aware that we are announcing this effort on the anniversary of Dr. King's death. The Holy Father told me that he wants to be supportive of what we are doing and to offer a word of encouragement as we move forward in building a framework of peace. And so, he has written a letter signed in both English and Spanish, and I am pleased now to read the English version. You'll be getting a copy of the letters in your press packets. To Cardinal Blase Cupich, Archbishop of Chicago. Dear brother, please convey to the people of Chicago that they have been on my mind and in my prayers. I know that many families have lost loved ones to violence. I'm close to them. I share in their grief and pray that they may experience healing and reconciliation through God's grace. I assure you of my support for the commitment you and many other local leaders are making to promote nonviolence as a way of life and a path to peace in Chicago. You are marking that effort by inviting people of goodwill to walk for peace on Good Friday in areas afflicted by violence. As I make my own way of the cross in Rome that day, I will accompany you in prayer, as well as those who walk with you and who have suffered violence in the city. Sadly, as you have told me, people of different ethnic, economic, and social backgrounds suffer discrimination, indifference, injustice, and violence today. We must reject this exclusion and isolation and not think of any group as others, but rather as our own brothers and sisters. This openness of heart and mind must be taught and nurtured in the homes and in schools. Walking the path of peace is not always easy, but it is the only authentic response to violence. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, humanity must evolve for all human conflict, a method that rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. I urge all people, especially young men and women, to respond to Dr. King's prophetic words and know that a culture of nonviolence is not an unattainable dream, but a path that has produced decisive results. The consistent practice of nonviolence has broken barriers, bound wounds, healed nations, and it can heal Chicago. I pray that the people of your beautiful city never lose hope, that they work together to become builders of peace, showing future generations the true power of love. And I ask you to pray for me too. Francis. I'm now pleased to introduce Monsignor Boland from Catholic Charities, who will amplify some of the remarks that I made on the programs that we have.
Thank you, Cardinal Cupich. I'm Monsignor Mike Boland, the president of Catholic Charities here in the Archdiocese of Chicago. And next week, Catholic Charities will begin a year-long celebration of our 100th year anniversary. And as we celebrate a century of hope, I am proud to stand here today with all of you in this beacon of hope in the Austin community. From the agency's beginnings, when a group of business and religious leaders came together as the nation had just entered the Great War, and when the city faced a deadly pandemic, Catholic Charities has attended to the needs of people in Cook and Lake counties. We have changed and grown over the years as the needs of the community has evolved. You have a map of our sites of care in your packets. To save you the counting, we offer 150 programs at 153 locations across Cook County and Lake County. Today, every 30 seconds, someone comes to Catholic Charities in need. That's about 1 million people a year. In this community of Austin, which is one of the largest populated areas in the city, Catholic Charities serves 32,800 people through this site, through our women and infant children's centers, through our immigration services, our free health fairs, counseling, and many more things that we do. I have been asked many times about how many of our clients are Catholic. I don't know, because we do not ask the question. We are all aware of the epidemic of violence in Chicago that has challenged the best leaders among us to find a solution, or solutions, as it is, as the Cardinal has said, is a many-faceted problem. We have responded in communities throughout the Archdiocese when the need is greatest, where the need is greatest. You are standing an example of our response today. We are mindful that in this neighborhood, young people are hungry for mentorship, for a safe place to come, and for hope. Catholic Charities provides shelter and counseling, job training, housing assistance to ease the desperation that begets violence. We have seen violence reduced by interventions such as these, and we know we can make a difference if we spread our impact even further. And we are proud to be part of the Cardinal's anti-violence initiative and invite all people of goodwill to become involved. When Catholic Charities was founded 100 years ago, Mercy Home for Boys and Girls, it is known, had been around for 3 decades. Now it is my honor to introduce Father Scott Donahue, the president of Mercy Home for Boys and Girls.
Good morning. Thank you, Cardinal Cupich. Thank you, Monsignor Boland. And thank you for the gracious hospitality extended to us as we come to visit this real beacon of hope, the Peace Corner here on the west side. Mercy Home for Boys and Girls, as Monsignor said, has been a Catholic institution in the Archdiocese of Chicago for over 130 years. The mission was founded in 1887, and the purpose of the mission was to help homeless boys, kids in the community that had no home, kids who were orphaned, kids who were abandoned, to bring them into the home and to provide safety and shelter for them. 100 years after we founded our girls' home, the Walsh campus at 117th and Longwood Drive. And today I'm proud to say that we take care of well over 600 abused and neglected young people and their families on 3 different campuses. We bring at Mercy Home the experience of caring for those lives who have been scarred by violence, the violence of lack of opportunity, the violence of poverty, the violence of neglect, the direct experience of violence to themselves and to family members. We believe at Mercy Home, and we believe as an anti-violence committee, that the only way to break this cycle of violence is by reaching out and by saving one life at a time. We must rebuild the support that children need, the support that they receive at Mercy Home for Boys and Girls. What does support look like? It looks like a safe place to live. It looks like a good education. It looks at the opportunity to deal with the own woundedness of their lives. It looks like offering them career opportunity and hopes and dreams for their future. Those are supports that oftentimes we take for granted because of the families that we've been blessed to come from. We know at Mercy Home that young people cannot reject violence if that's the only thing that they have known. They cannot reject violence if retaliation is the only response that they have seen, if the gang is the only support system that they've experienced in their young lives. At Mercy Home for Boys and Girls, we provide support in so many ways to the young people and the families entrusted to our care. And some of the best ways in which we can support our young people is by partnering with others, by partnering with the best. And one of the programs that we've partnered with at Mercy Home and the Peace Corner has partnered with is the Becoming a Man and Working on Womanhood programs that was developed by Youth Guidance. It's a wonderful program that reaches out, enhances the lives and the self-esteem of young people who participate in the program. The University of Chicago study shows that those young men who have been a part of the BAM program, these are some of the statistics. It reduced violent crime arrests among young men by 50%. It reduced total arrests by 35%. It increased on-time high school graduation by 19%. That's why the anti-violence direction of the Archdiocese of Chicago, that's why the Archdiocese of Chicago and Mercy Home and its partnering members will enhance the partnership that we have with Youth Guidance and to create a parish-based program for BAM and for WOW so that we can make these services, this wonderful program, more available to more children in the most difficult parts of our city. It's a wonderful initiative to enhance and to continue to promote BAM and WOW, and I'm very excited about that. Lastly, and the Archbishop said it so beautiful, Cardinal Cupich, it really is, it's about prayer. It's about praying for peace in our community, praying for peace in our neighborhoods, praying for peace with our families, and praying for peace for our young people. Thank you, and I'm going to turn the microphone back to Cardinal Cupich.
I'm happy to take your questions at this time. Yes, please, go ahead.
Why does this become an archdiocesan issue? The violence in Chicago, what you're speaking of, what the Pope's spoke of. Why is this an issue?
Well, we're already in the neighborhoods, and we're already serving. So this is a way of making sure, as I said, we realize what exactly we're doing already, but how we can better coordinate and bring them together and then interest other partners to enhance what we're doing. So we're already here. And I wanted to recognize the fact that so much good was being done to put the spotlight on them, but also to make sure that I was properly informed as the Archbishop in a way that can be supportive of these efforts in an ongoing way. Yes, please.
As far as the job itself, it seems like it's an insurmountable job, that it's one that you're never going to run out of violence, unfortunately.
Right, and I think that, as I said in my remarks, just because we can't do everything doesn't mean we shouldn't do something. And I think that when we hear, for instance, people with hopelessness in their voices, it's time for us to stand up and say, no, wait a minute, a lot of good things are happening already. Let's look for a way in which we can build on that. But it is going to take one person at a time. And the challenge that I offer is, as we move in this year of Dr. King to mark that 50th anniversary next April 4th, let's each one of us make a commitment that we're going to do something ourselves, to join an effort that's already in play, or maybe to be supportive of them. We can make a difference, each one of us, if we respond to what the Holy Father invited us to do at the beginning of the new year. Yes?
Cardinal, given that this is a national and international, let's put us in an international spotlight, what are the chances have you asked the Pope himself whether he might come here?
Well, I think that we're really responding, the Pope isn't responding to us, we're responding to what the Pope said. And I was, when I was made a cardinal, I was made a cardinal with a bishop who serves in Syria in very difficult areas. So I think that the Pope was speaking to everybody at the beginning of the year and looking for people to respond. And when I talked to him, he said, yes, this is exactly what I wanted to happen from my New Year's message. So I think that instead of the Pope maybe putting the spotlight on us, we're in fact putting the spotlight once again on his message. Please, Mary.
Colonel, I wonder, at a time when an archdiocese is reevaluating parishes, schools, and it's gotten somewhat smaller, plans to be smaller, this is a kind of an opposite message of you want to expand. So I'm just trying
Sure. Well, in fact, I'm glad you asked it that way because I can make sure that people understand that our Renew My Church isn't about getting smaller. It's about taking up the mission in a fresh way. This is at the heart of the mission. If we don't do this as a church, then we might as well pack up. This is what we should be doing. We should be with people who are in need. As the Pope said, the church has to be a field hospital. So this is precisely at the heart of Renew My Church. How are we going to reinvigorate, revitalize our parishes, not just to be concerned about maintenance, but to do the mission?
The philanthropy fund, can you explain? I know what you said you would do. What are you looking for? What will that money be used for specifically?
Well, again, as I said, I visited with a number of parishes and also victims who suffered from family violence and others, talking to priests about some of the programs they want to do on a small basis, who need maybe a few $1,000s to carry it on. I see this as seed money for these local neighborhood initiatives that are sometimes overlooked by larger foundations. So my hope would be that we would be able to support those initiatives, because it is going to take neighborhood by neighborhood. It's going to take person by person, parish by parish, in order for this to happen. There really is no niche fund to support those efforts. And so the recommendations that I received came back to me and said, you know, these people are overlooked, and yet they're so effective. Like the program that Father Flager does, that he mentioned, that we mentioned earlier, that he does. And also he has a program of, what's it, over peace? Purpose over pain, that I visited with folks who are suffering from violence. I visited with 6 families in his parish, and 6 families in Father Manny Durance's parish, Hispanos, who suffered from violence. And they want to do things for them, but they lack the resources. And I think there are other entities outside of the Catholic Church that also could benefit from this fund. We're going to need a lot of help to get this up and running. Please.
Cardinal, can you help us understand what the conversation was like between you and Pope? And how deep is his knowledge of our struggles here in Chicago?
Well, I think that whenever I visit him, he says, how are things going to Chicago? And of course, I always put the best spin on it as possible, just to tell him the wonderful things that are happening here. But I did tell him that we had been working on this effort, and that I was inspired by his World Day of Peace message, and found some really wonderful insights for me to pursue. And so when I told him about this, he said, yes, this is how I wanted each diocese in the world and people in the world to respond to what I said. So that's when he said, can I send a letter to tell people, yes, keep going, this is what I would like. Let's move ahead, and I encourage you. And particularly when he found out I was going to make the announcement on this day, he said, this is right for me to be a part of what you're doing. But also, he said, to dedicate my way of the cross in Rome, as he said in the letter, to be in solidarity with you on that day.
Cardinal, if I could just follow up.
Sure.
So, was he aware before the conversation of our struggles, or did that come up during the conversation?
No, I think that the Pope, of course, follows what's happening around the world, in various parts of the world, in cities where it's in the news. So I guess I didn't have to go too much into that with him. But I did brief him with more detail about the challenges that we face right now. So he was, I think he knew in general. I gave him more specifics. Yes. Yes, please.
Cardinal, are you planning an annual peace walk on Good Friday?
Well, I guess we'll see how things go. I'm willing to look at ways in which we can improve the situation. I think that this is going to unleash within, especially the religious community, a sense that, yes, we can work together to do something. So my hope would be that this would just be a spur for others to join in what we're doing. Yeah.
Do you think that the walk and what you're doing here, your personal efforts, will have any weight with people in the community that they'll say, the Cardinal's getting involved, I see something going on?
I met with a number of the pastors and ministers and other denominations in the African American community over this past year. I've had different times, and time and again, as one of them said to me, the civil rights movement in Chicago would not have happened if the Catholic Church did not take a lead. And I was touched by that. And the message to me was, we need the largest Christian community, the largest religious community here in Chicago, to step forward and bring us together. And I think I have a responsibility to respond to that. It's not about the church. It's about whether or not we should leverage our footprint and our presence in the community to be a magnet to bring people together. And if I can do that, and I'm called upon to do that, I'm happy to play that role. But I can't do it alone, and I need the partnerships of others. And at the dinner that I had just a week or two ago, the pastors around the table said, we're going to bring communities to the Good Friday, because I briefed them on this ahead of time. And there were no leaks.
What about the mayor? What role does the city play in this, and why isn't someone from the city here today?
Well, I think I did brief the mayor. I let him know what we're doing, and he was delighted that the Holy Father is sending the letter. He sees what we're doing as a response to what the Pope has asked us to do, and I think that he continues to look for ways in which he can quell the violence, but also bring about peace. I've been in close communication with him really since I've been here about a number of issues, and I know this is one that he's willing always to look for ways in which broader members of the community in different areas like religious leaders and business can be brought together. Yeah.
How will parishes not in affected areas, how will they contribute to this effort?
Well, some of them already are, because they're the ones who go down into the various areas outside of their parish communities to support the pantry programs and to also donate to Catholic Charities and Mercy Home. So a lot of folks are already. My hope would be that by doing things such as On the Table in those parishes, the BAM program in places where there is not violence, but just to let people know what we're doing, the Escolas Ocurrentes, where we're going to have kids in different neighborhoods come together to break down the segregation. We're going to invite them all to be a part of this. But this is about the mission of the church for everybody. It's not just for the ones who are living in different zones. Good. Yes, please.
Is this the first time that the discretionary fund is used this way for perhaps outside agencies?
Yes, I think it's what I do is I get requests all the time for people from different organizations or different parishes to help with one thing or another, and so we go through that, and I'm able to distribute those funds. But this is the first time that we're taking a block of money and setting it aside and saying we're going to dedicate to this as a seed fund to attract others. So it is the first time that we're doing this. Yes, please. Hi, Manya. How are you? Right now, it's this is about half of it, I think. Yeah. And this is fund. These are funds that have been accumulated during since I've been here, and when Cardinal George passed over the fund to me. That when people send money and say, use this as you need for different projects that otherwise fall outside of the budget. And so, like when I became a cardinal, a lot of people wanted to give gifts, and I said, no, don't give it to me, give it to this discretionary fund. So those funds were built up.
And then you talked earlier about the youth having a voice in this process, and I'm curious, in this process that's been going on for some time, planning this initiative, what kind of feedback did you get from young people? What kind of input did they have? What did you hear?
Well, and again, I think I'm going to maybe let Father Scott talk about that, because he handled that from on the committee that we had to gather that information. But my sense was that, and I see this when I go to Cook County Jail. I was just there at the Juvenile Detention Center this weekend to do baptisms and confirmation to young men. And these are young people who are 14 to 18 years old. And just talking to them, who are in jail, some of them for a long time, is that they didn't have any options. They didn't have a way out. And so we have to look for a way to give them an alternative. these kids are not born bad. They really are kids who don't see another pathway forward. And so the responsibility is not always on them, it's on us. Yeah.
You talked a lot today about the solution and what you're working on. I just wonder maybe if you could step back and just give us a sense of how it is for you to see some of the stories you report day after day, to see some of the violence and the impact in the community, for you to witness what's happening in the community.
Well, it's heartbreaking, and I think we see it all the time. And it was really brought home to me, you know, these people, the young people who are killed, or the people who are killed, I don't know who they are. But I did come to know who they are when I met with their families. And when you begin to see what the impact on the family system of that death, where they really mourn and grieve for a number of reasons. First of all, many of them are poor. They were embarrassed because they didn't have money to bury their children. Second, they also felt discarded because so often the death of their young person is reported as gang-related, when in fact they were not members of the gang. And so by saying that, their lives are marginalized, are discarded as unimportant. So I would just encourage you all in the media to look at that issue of how it's reported. And then third is that out of the 12 families that I visited, only one had any adjudication of someone being charged. So there was a sense in which they were disconnected even further from the community. We have to look for a way in which we make sure that everybody belongs, and that we do care about them. I would encourage you maybe to do some follow-up stories with those families that have been victimized by violence. Sit down and talk to them, and find out their story, what's happening to them, how it has impacted their outlook about belonging to a community, about whether people care about them, whether they count. There's a story there that should be told. Yeah.
Are you suggesting, though, that the police are getting it wrong? Because that's where we get the information when we refer to it as gang-related.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting information or how it's reported, but I'm just saying that before you report it, I'd like to maybe you want to talk to the families before you say that. Yeah, Anya.
Yes, that's often something that we get from law enforcement.
Yeah.
Homicides, and I am curious.
And of course, law enforcement are not reporters. So, I mean, you both have your own distinct job, it seems to me. So.
Well, and I wanted to just say, what kinds of conversations have you had with law enforcement, again, fueling this initiative?
Yeah, and I've been on night rides since I've been here. I'm very sympathetic to law enforcement. I mean, they get up every day, leave their home and family, where some of their kids or their spouses wonder or not they're going to come back home at night because they have such a difficult job. And in the rides that I've had, you can see that neighborhoods are segregated, where people feel locked in, and the police are dealing with that. So I think that that's why on the Good Friday we're going to have law enforcement as part of the Way of the Cross, because they also are willing to help carry this burden and work in solidarity. These people who are serving law enforcement got into it inspired by the desire to do good in society, to protect society. And I think we need to tap into that and encourage them.